Okay, everyone. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. Wasn't originally planning on doing a video here before the race in in Kansas tonight. But obviously, with everything going on in the aftermath of Quin Houff's apparently unforgivable sin of making a mistake at the end of the Texas race, it seems that we have to talk about this now. So we're going to. So for those of you who didn't watch the race last week, Quin Houff, towards the end of the race, had apparently the mirror on the left side of his car fall off. And he was trying to make a pit stop at the end of the race. And I don't know what happened with his spotter or what was going on with the team. I wasn't listening to the radio at the time. But of course, he made a left-hand turn at the worst possible moment and ended up clipping both Christopher Bell and Matt Benedetto, messing up their runs and wrecking his car and causing a caution that ultimately trapped a couple of drivers that were going to be in position to win, Ryan Blaney and Art Almirola among them. Okay, that happened. Not going to defend anything here and say that that didn't happen. So the other day, I was thinking about Quin, who earlier this year, just actually earlier this month at Indianapolis, was at the tail end of the longest line coming to pit road. And he was running in last place, so he got to be the last car in line. So he was able to back off a little bit, come into pit road, and he managed to avoid that very big pileup that caught up several drivers with way more experience than him, including Ryan Preece and Martin Truex Jr. and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and several other competitors in there. And I listened to the radio at the time during that incident, and I heard Houff say to his team that he had watched video about coming down pit road and that he had that he watched a video about Bubba Wallace's incident at pit road, the exact same race last year, and that he backed off and he prevented there from being an accident. And that saved not only his car, but the two cars in front of him. There was, I believe it was Daniel Suarez and one other driver in front of him there, Josh Bilicki, the number 7 car, drivers for smaller teams. So, okay, so this happened. And I didn't think I was saying anything that controversial in pointing this out. I thought it was a very relevant point because the whole reason everybody's angry about Houff in particular, I mean, it's from many sources, but primarily this presumption that he didn't know what he was doing and that he made a reckless and stupid maneuver and that he ruined several drivers' days and everything else. And Keselowski comes out and says there should be some kind of Formula One related thing where drivers get busted down to lower series or, just get forced into having some more time behind the wheel if they make a maneuver like that. And so now NASCAR, I'm sure, is now considering this just because of this moment. And yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. But, at the same time, this response, this bizarre and just outrage by so many people where they take it like almost like their mother was driving this car or something like that. They were personally offended or personally affected because Quin Houff's car, caused this accident. I don't get that. And I don't get this from this standpoint. And quite honestly, and I'm not saying this about everybody, and most of you guys watching here, I'm not really speaking to you guys on this. Because from the coverage that I do on these teams at the back of the field, this is what we cover. These are the stories that we follow at the same time. But several other people took an unusually hostile approach to this whole thing, and I sense this is from multiple different directions. Now, okay, I get it from one standpoint. That Landon Castle was in Starcom's car, and helped get them their feet under them after they got their charter and was getting some solid runs in there. And it's unfortunate to now see Landon out of a ride when he was working with Morgan Shepherd's team. And now it seems that Shepherd's team isn't going to be able to run the rest of this year. And, and I hate that for him. Landon's a great guy. And he deserves to have a great run out there. And, whether it was with Starcom or with somebody else. But these teams are businesses, people. And we can have magical thinking about where this money's going to come from these different drivers. But at the end of the day, it was up to the team about which direction they wanted to go, what team they could bring on, and what sponsorships they could get. And apparently, it was a better deal with Quin than with Landon. And that's nothing against Landon. It's nothing against Quin. It's just business. And the other thing that's bizarre about this is that, again, everybody's getting on me for trying to make something more out of this incident in Indianapolis as being more of a comment on Quin. Well, I think most people that were being particularly this harsh about Quin Houff weren't really aware of who he even was until this incident in Texas. And I don't know if it was just that they lost a lot of money in DraftKings or something because their pick got further back in the field. Stuff happens, folks. And you know what? That could have just as easily happened to a big team or a small team or anybody else, just like that incident on pit road. Martin Truex Jr. was in that. Justin Allgaier was in that, driving Jimmy Johnson's car. That got big teams and small teams. And everybody could have just as easily been as critical and condemning about that as they could have been in Quin's situation here. So I just don't get it. And I think this has just been a really, really bizarre situation with all this right now. And it's unfortunate for Quin. It's not fair to him, quite honestly. And, and this attitude where it's all or nothing, where, you can't even, again, we talked about this on this channel not long ago, the fact that you can't even disagree with anybody anymore, where the mob mentality, this marching towards one angle or another, if enough people are behind it, well, they must be right. And anybody who says anything different, oh, they must be completely wrong. They don't get it. There's something wrong with that person. That's terrible. And, a big part of this is the social media angle of it. I mean, I got to be perfectly honest. If there was a better option than Twitter to do a lot of this social media stuff and track these teams, I would join that in a heartbeat, because the culture on Twitter is just awful. And to play fast and loose with a driver's career and to do this whole thing where, you have a driver that is just trying to make a name for himself, and yeah, making mistakes along the way. But I'll tell you this, that dude isn't finishing last every week. There's other teams that, if that's the metric that everybody's looking at, you shouldn't be looking at Quin Houff. And he's driving for a small team that's trying to get things going. The reasons that he's further back in the field could be just as much because of that for any other reason. And let's consider this as well. There's no practice in qualifying. That's been difficult for big teams out there. Kyle Busch still doesn't have a win yet. We'll see if he gets one tonight. You never know, but he might not. And just imagine how much more difficult that is when you're a Cup Series rookie coming out there and trying to compete. We saw NASCAR step in already and keep drivers like James Davison from making their Cup debut at Talladega, doing it at other races. Quin has been trying to do a full season effort in all this, and I think been doing at least a solid job out there. And okay, yeah, he's not a top 5 driver, and I'm not saying he's the best driver out there or he's driving for the best team out there or the best situation, but I think he's doing the best that he can with everything out there. So I don't get, this different situation here with this and everything that's happening with this. And I know people are going to take different angles on this because, again, it just becomes so personal at the same time. And I'm sure they're probably thinking it's the same thing with me too, that I'm taking it personal. But I just think that, again, when there's a surge of a mob mentality, everything going that direction, I think it's even more important to hear disagreements in there or to hear other evidence. But evidence gets shouted down nowadays, and that's not right, and it's not fair. And much like with everything else, with what happened at Talladega, for example, and the way the media ran with everything that was going on there, people playing fast and loose with people's careers and people's jobs and things like that. This is just another sad example of that, and I can't support that. And you know what? I don't care how much I get shouted down on that. I'm going to talk about this. And you know what? If people don't like it, well, that's their problem. So, I don't like doing videos like this where things get overly negative, but that really left a bad taste in my mouth this week. And I know that there's probably something that is going to end up happening, and Quin is unfortunately going to be made the scapegoat of all of this. And everybody's going to say, oh, well, goodness, I'm glad that evil was vanquished. But you know what? The kid's just trying to make a name for himself out there. And, he's done a lot, not just with Starcom, but with Spire Motors, with Spire's team. And even before that, at the Brandon Godovic's team there. It's not too long ago, this kid was getting top 15 finishes with a very underfunded effort at Iowa and other competitors. You look at his Busch Series standings, they're solid. Not a driver that, is Chase Briscoe or an Austin Cindric, but we're not exactly talking about somebody that doesn't know exactly what he's doing. And that's the worst part of all of this. So, definitely, leave your definitely leave your comments in the comment section below here. Definitely want to get your thoughts on this. You know, well, I guess if nothing else, I'm glad I have this other channel to discuss things like this, because I don't like to bring things like this into our trivia nights and things like that at the same time. But I definitely want to get your thoughts in the section below there. Definitely stay tuned for more content later tonight as we cover the Kansas race and kick things off. And we'll see what happens with Quin and, well, with Ryan Preece at the same time. So stay tuned on all of that. And yeah, definitely leave a comment below. And I definitely want to know what you think. And hopefully after the discussion like that, maybe something good will come of this and cooler heads will prevail. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.